I've spent nearly a century watching people chase money, and I've learned something most of them never figure out. You don't have to be brilliant to become financially free. You don't have to invent something, win the lottery, or have a high-paying job. I've seen teachers, mechanics, and small business owners, ordinary people, quietly build lives of complete independence. And they all did it the same way, by thinking clearly while everyone else was acting foolish. Most people believe freedom belongs to the rich. They think they need a miracle or a massive salary to get there. But I've watched plenty of people earn a lot and still stay broke, and others earn modestly and retire free. The difference isn't luck or intelligence, it's behavior, it's patience, it's rationality. Financial freedom isn't about how much you make, it's about how you think about what you make. It's about controlling your habits before they control you, and letting compounding do the work you can't. In this video, I'll show you exactly how ordinary people just like you, can achieve something most millionaires never do: genuine freedom. When people hear the phrase financial freedom, they picture yachts, mansions, and private jets. But that's not freedom, that's maintenance. It's more stress, more debt, and more dependence. Real freedom has nothing to do with luxury. It's about control. It's about waking up in the morning and doing what you want, when you want, with people you respect without worrying about money. I learned that truth a long time ago. Growing up in Omaha during the Great Depression, I saw people who had very little, yet lived with peace of mind. They didn't have big houses or fancy cars. What they had was independence. They didn't owe anyone. They didn't spend more than they earned. And because of that, nobody could tell them what to do. That's real wealth. The middle class often misses this point. They chase comfort, not control. They think if they just earn a little more or buy nicer things, they'll finally feel free. But they don't. The bills grow with their income, the debt piles up, and the golden handcuffs tighten. They end up working harder just to keep what they already have, calling that security. But if you can't afford to stop, you're not free, you're trapped. I've always believed that freedom begins when your money starts working harder than you do. It doesn't take millions to reach that point, just consistency. If you save and invest early, even small amounts, compounding does most of the work. It's quiet, slow, and boring. But so is real success. The world loves excitement, and that's why most people never reach independence. They confuse activity with achievement. When you build wealth the right way, your life gradually shifts from obligation to choice. You stop asking, "Can I afford this?" and start asking, "Do I want this?" That's freedom. It's not about escaping work, it's about being able to choose meaningful work. I've worked my entire life, but never because I had to. That's the difference. The truth is, financial freedom isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in time. If you can live for a year without worrying about money, you're already wealthier than most. If you can live for 10 years, you're practically untouchable. Freedom grows every time you increase the distance between your lifestyle and your income. That distance is where independence lives. So before you chase more income, build more control. Before you seek a higher salary, build better habits. Because freedom isn't a finish line you reach, it's a mindset you practice. The average person doesn't need more money to be free. They just need to stop trading all of it for comfort, approval, and stuff that doesn't last. Most people never achieve financial freedom, not because they're lazy, but because they're trapped in systems they don't question. They work, they spend, they repeat. And the worst part, they think that's what life is supposed to look like. They confuse survival with success. I've met countless people over the years who earn good money but never have any. They buy the things they've been told, symbolize achievement, the house, the car, the vacations, and end up chained to them. They call it living well, but what they've really done is build a cage that looks comfortable. Their income rises, but their expenses chase it like a shadow. That's why I always say, it's not how much you make that matters, it's how much you keep and what you do with what you keep. The truth is, most people stay trapped because they live on autopilot. They've been conditioned to consume. Every advertisement, every piece of financial advice from people who profit off you tells you to buy, borrow, and spend. The result is predictable. The average person spends decades working for things that depreciate and then wonders why they can't stop working. When I was young, I saw this pattern early. People would talk about getting ahead, but their habits never matched their goals. They'd buy what they didn't need with money they didn't have to impress people they didn't even like, and then they'd call it normal. I never wanted that kind of normal. Fear plays a big part in the trap, too. People are afraid to be different. They're afraid to miss out. They're afraid to look cheap. But if you want freedom, you have to be willing to think independently, even when it makes you unpopular. I learned that lesson the hard way. The crowd is usually wrong, especially when it comes to money. Another reason people stay trapped is they think too short term. They make decisions for the weekend instead of the decade. They value comfort today more than peace tomorrow. But every comfort you buy now comes with a price, and the price is time. Time you'll spend later trying to earn it back. The people who break free aren't necessarily smarter. They're just more aware. They understand how the system works and refuse to play by its rules. They know every dollar they keep and invest is a small act of rebellion, a quiet step toward independence. I've spent a lifetime studying behavior, and the truth is simple. People don't need more income. They need more clarity. You can't save what you can't see. You can't grow what you don't control. And you'll never be free until you stop living the way the world expects and start thinking for yourself. If there's one lesson I wish every young person understood, it's this. Saving early is far more powerful than earning more later. Time is the friend of the disciplined and the enemy of the impatient. I've seen people make millions and end up broke because they didn't respect compounding. And I've seen ordinary people, teachers, store owners, engineers, become financially free because they started saving early and never stopped. When I was young, I didn't have much, but I always understood the power of keeping a little. Every dollar I didn't spend was a seed, and if you give a seed enough time, it becomes a tree. The problem is, most people want fruit before they've even planted anything. They can't stand waiting. They think saving is boring because it is, but boring works. Compounding doesn't reward excitement. It rewards patience. You don't have to save huge amounts to change your future. You just have to start early and be consistent. A person who saves $100 a month from age 20 will end up wealthier than someone who starts saving $500 a month at age 35. The difference isn't the amount, it's the time. That's what people never seem to grasp. When you save, you're not depriving yourself. You're buying freedom. Every dollar you save buys you a little more control over your future. It's a small piece of independence. The middle class sees saving as sacrifice. I see it as strategy. The ability to live slightly below your means is a superpower in a world obsessed with appearances. I've always said the first $100,000 is the hardest. It's true because that's where discipline is tested. Once you reach that point, compounding starts doing the heavy lifting. It feels like nothing is happening for years. Then suddenly everything happens at once. But you'll never experience that moment if you can't get through the slow part, the years of saving small amounts and feeling like it doesn't matter. I've seen people in their 20s who thought they had all the time in the world, and people in their 50s who said, I wish I'd started earlier. You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. Every year you wait, compounding loses some of its magic. Saving early doesn't just build wealth, it builds character. It teaches patience, restraint, and the ability to delay gratification. And those habits will serve you far beyond money. Financial freedom isn't built in sudden bursts. It's built in quiet, consistent steps. Start small, stay steady. Let time and compounding do the work. Because one day, if you do it right, your money will start earning while you sleep. And that's when freedom truly begins. If there's one principle that separates the financially free from everyone else, it's this living below your means. It sounds simple, almost too simple, but very few people actually do it. Most people don't want to look poor, even for a little while, and that's exactly why they stay poor for a very long time. When I was young, I didn't care much about appearances. I cared about control. I saw too many people who looked successful but were quietly drowning in debt. They had nice clothes, new cars, and big houses, all financed. They were owned by their lifestyle. I decided early that I'd rather be free than impressive, and that's a decision that changes everything. The world will constantly tempt you to spend more. The minute you start earning a little extra, people will tell you that you deserve it. Buy something nice, upgrade, enjoy life. That's how most people stay stuck. Every time their income rises, their expenses rise right alongside it. They never build the gap that leads to freedom. Living below your means isn't deprivation, it's leverage. It's how you create that space where compounding can start working for you. It's how you build savings, investments, and eventually independence. Every dollar you don't spend is a dollar that keeps working for you in the background. That's the quiet truth the world doesn't advertise. I've always admired people who can live simply. Not because they have to, but because they choose to. Simplicity shows strength. It means you're not controlled by desire or by what other people think of you. It's a form of self-respect, the kind that doesn't depend on approval. Warren and I have both lived by this idea. Neither of us needed fancy houses or flashy cars. We were never interested in showing off. We were interested in building something that would last. While others were spending to look rich, we were letting compounding quietly make us rich. People often confuse wealth with lifestyle, but they're opposites. Lifestyle is what you spend. Wealth is what you keep. Most people want the feeling of wealth, not the reality of it, and feelings are expensive. The truth is you can't build freedom if you're busy upgrading your life every time you make progress. The real game is to increase income while keeping your lifestyle the same. Do that for 10 years, and you'll have more freedom than 99% of people you know. The middle class works hard but spends harder. The wealthy work patiently and save quietly. One group lives for the weekend, the other builds for decades. The formula isn't complicated, it's just hard to follow in a world addicted to display. If you can learn to live below your means, not out of fear, but out of strategy, you'll find that wealth isn't about having more. It's about needing less, and that's where real freedom begins. If you really want to get ahead in life, stop trying to be brilliant and start focusing on avoiding stupidity. I've spent a lifetime telling people this, and they still don't believe me, but it's the truth. You don't need to do extraordinary things to become financially free. You just need to avoid doing the dumb things that everyone else calls normal. People love to complicate money. They chase exotic investments, time the markets, and make risky bets they barely understand. They'll spend months studying opportunities and 5 minutes reading their own credit card statements. That's not intelligence, that's ego pretending to be effort. The most successful people I know got there by doing simple things and consistently avoiding mistakes. When I was young, I realized there were two ways to succeed. You could be really smart, or you could avoid being stupid. The second one's much easier. I've always preferred the path of least resistance. Avoid debt, avoid envy, avoid lifestyle inflation, avoid speculation, avoid overconfidence. Each one of those things can ruin you faster than intelligence can save you. I've seen geniuses go broke chasing shortcuts, and I've seen ordinary people build quiet fortunes by staying rational. The difference wasn't knowledge, it was temperament. The intelligent man wants to prove he's right. The rational man just wants to survive. And survival in compounding and in life is the foundation of freedom. You see, money is a funny thing. It rewards consistency and punishes impulsiveness. The market doesn't care how smart you are. It only cares how patient you can be. The same applies to your personal finances. If you avoid the big mistakes, overspending, debt, greed, impatience, you automatically put yourself ahead of most people. It's not about playing perfectly. It's about avoiding ruin. Warren and I have built our entire philosophy on that. We've never tried to be the smartest in the room. We just try not to do dumb things. And over decades, that approach compounds. The world is full of people trying to do brilliant things. Very few are trying not to blow up. Financial freedom doesn't require genius level investing. It requires self-control. If you can resist the temptation to follow the crowd, if you can stay calm while everyone else panics, and if you can avoid letting emotion guide your money, you'll win. Slowly, maybe, but surely. I've always believed success is more about subtraction than addition. You don't need to add brilliance, just subtract mistakes, eliminate stupidity, and what's left is wisdom. It's not glamorous, but it works. So don't try to outsmart the system. Just refuse to be its victim. You'll be amazed how far not doing stupid things will take you. In fact, it's taken me all the way to financial freedom, and I didn't have to be brilliant to get there. If you ask me what separates those who become financially free from those who never do, I'd say one word: patience. Not intelligence, not opportunity, not luck. Patience. The ability to wait quietly while compounding does its slow, invisible work. That's the hardest thing in the world for most people to do. We live in a culture that worships speed. People want fast money, fast success, fast results. But wealth doesn't work that way. It moves at the pace of discipline, not desire. It grows like a tree, not like a fire. It takes years of doing the same boring things, saving, investing, staying rational before the results start to show. And most people quit long before that happens. When I was younger, I realized something. Everyone wants the rewards of compounding, but no one wants to wait for them. They plant the seed and dig it up every week to check if it's growing. That's why most people never build wealth. They interrupt the process that would have made them rich. Patience is a rare kind of intelligence. It's the understanding that time, not talent, is the ultimate multiplier. Every dollar you leave alone, every investment you let sit, every impulse you resist, all of it adds up. But the returns come slowly, then suddenly. You can't rush nature, and compounding is nature disguised as finance. I've watched people panic when the market falls and get greedy when it rises. Both reactions come from the same flaw: impatience. They can't stand not doing something. But often, the smartest move is no move at all. Warren and I have made more money by sitting still than most people make by trading. Inactivity isn't laziness, it's discipline. It's the confidence to let time do the heavy lifting. Patience doesn't just apply to investing, it applies to life. The person who can wait without losing focus will always outperform the person who can't sit still. That's why I say it's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid. Building wealth, wisdom, or character, it's all the same process. Slow, steady, and painfully simple. The average person fails not because they make bad decisions, but because they make good ones inconsistently. They start saving, then stop. They invest, then panic. They plan, then chase distractions. If they simply waited, truly waited, their future would look completely different. Patience feels like doing nothing, but it's actually the most productive thing you can do. Because when you let compounding work, time becomes your employee and it never stops working, not even while you sleep. So if you want to be free, stop rushing. Slow down. Let the boring years pass, because the slow years are the ones that make the fast years possible. That's how ordinary people quietly become extraordinary over time. You can't become financially free until you understand how money actually works. And the irony is, most people who spend their entire lives earning money never take the time to study it. They learn how to work for money, but not how to make money work for them. That's like spending your whole life driving a car without ever learning how the engine runs. When I was young, I realized that money is just a tool, a very powerful one, but also a very dangerous one if you don't understand it. I didn't have a degree in finance when I started learning. I just read, thought, and observed. I watched how people behaved with money, how fear and greed controlled their decisions, and I promised myself I wouldn't fall into those traps. The first lesson I learned is that money flows toward competence. The better you are at understanding how the world works, the more valuable you become. That's why I tell people, become a lifelong learner. Read broadly business, psychology, history, economics. The more models you collect, the better your decisions will be. Wealth is built through good judgment, and good judgment comes from understanding reality accurately. The second lesson is that money rewards patience and punishes emotion. Most people don't lose money because they're unlucky. They lose it because they can't control their impulses. They chase trends, follow crowds, and react to noise. That's not intelligence. That's animal behavior. Money flows away from people who act emotionally and toward people who act rationally. Another key idea most people never grasp is opportunity cost. Every dollar you spend today is a dollar that could have been working for you tomorrow. When you understand that, you stop wasting money on things that lose value and start directing it toward things that grow. That's the mental shift from consumer to investor, and that shift changes everything. I also learned early that you should never delegate your thinking. Too many people hand their money to experts and hope for the best. Hope is not a strategy. You don't have to be an expert, but you do have to be informed. Understand the basics: interest, inflation, risk, and compounding. Those four concepts explain 90% of wealth, and most people can't define one of them. You don't need a PhD to understand money. You just need curiosity and discipline. Read, think, and question everything you're told. If something sounds too good to be true, it is. If someone promises you easy money, it's probably their way of making money off you. The average person becomes financially free, not through brilliance, but through understanding. Once you see how money behaves, how it grows, how it shrinks, and how it can quietly multiply for decades, you stop fearing it and start mastering it. And that's the first real step toward freedom. One of the most important financial lessons I ever learned is this: you'll never become free by working for money alone. You become free when your money starts working for you. Most people never make that shift. They spend their entire lives trading time for income, and when the time stops, so does the money. That's not wealth, that's dependence. When I was younger, I worked hard like everyone else, but I also realized early that I couldn't work forever. I needed to find a way to turn the money I earned into something that would earn more without me. That's when I started thinking in terms of assets. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket while you sleep. A liability is anything that takes money out. Most people spend their whole lives confusing the two. The middle class fills their lives with liabilities, expensive cars, big houses, endless payments. It feels like progress, but it's not. Every new purchase increases the number of hours they have to keep working just to maintain it. They think they're building wealth, but they're really just building a treadmill. Financial freedom begins when you start converting your earned income into assets, productive things that generate cash flow or appreciate over time. It could be owning a piece of a business, buying shares of great companies, or acquiring real estate that pays you rent. It doesn't matter how small you start. What matters is that you start. When Warren and I bought See's Candies, we weren't just buying a business, we were buying a stream of cash that would keep flowing for decades. The key is to own something that earns while you're not working. The average person can do the same thing with index funds, dividend stocks, or any productive asset that grows quietly in the background. The beauty of compounding is that it doesn't care about your salary. It only cares about your discipline. I've met plenty of people who earned modest incomes but achieved complete independence. They didn't need millions. They just built assets over time and kept their lifestyle simple. It's not glamorous, but it works. The goal isn't to impress anyone. It's to escape the need to keep earning just to survive. The shift from consumer to owner is the turning point in anyone's financial life. The day you realize your money can work harder than you ever could, everything changes. You start thinking longer term. You start caring about returns instead of rewards. You stop measuring success by what you buy and start measuring it by what you own. The truth is, money that isn't working for you is money that's wasting away. Every dollar has a job to multiply. Once you learn to direct your income into assets that grow quietly, you'll find that freedom isn't a dream. It's a mathematical certainty if you're patient enough to let time do its work. If there's one quality that has made me and Warren more money than any other, it's emotional control. Staying rational when everyone else is panicking, that's the real edge. You can't control markets, you can't predict the future, but you can control your reactions, and that makes all the difference. Most people don't lose money because of bad investments, they lose it because of bad behavior. They buy when prices are high because everyone's excited, and they sell when prices are low because everyone's afraid. That's not investing, that's reacting. The crowd always swings between greed and fear, and the middle class follows it every time. I've lived through market crashes, recessions, bubbles, and manias. I've seen people make and lose fortunes in a single year, and the one constant I've noticed is this: emotion is the enemy of wealth. Every panic looks unique when you're in it, but in reality it's the same pattern, repeating itself: greed on the way up, fear on the way down. The people who keep their heads through both end up winning, not because they're smarter, but because they're steadier. When I was younger, I watched people get wiped out during the Great Depression. Later, I saw the same mistakes during the dot-com bubble, the housing crisis, and every speculative boom since. Human nature doesn't change. People want quick results and can't stand uncertainty. But uncertainty is the price of admission for compounding returns. If you can't handle volatility, you don't deserve growth. Warren and I built Berkshire Hathaway on the idea that you don't have to predict markets, you just have to endure them. We own wonderful businesses, we understand what we own, and when everyone else is panicking, we sit still. That's our secret. It's not cleverness, it's composure. The ability to do nothing when everyone else is doing too much. For the average person, the same principle applies. If you invest in solid assets, good companies, index funds, productive real estate, your biggest risk isn't the market. It's you. It's your emotions convincing you to act at exactly the wrong time. Every time you interrupt compounding, you reset your progress. Freedom comes from detachment, from understanding that you don't need to react to every fluctuation. You don't need to check prices every day. You don't need to follow the news like a heartbeat. Let time and discipline do the work. In the short term, markets are a voting machine. In the long term, they're a weighing machine. And patience always wins the weighing. So if you want to become financially free, master your emotions. Stay calm when others are greedy and confident when others are afraid. The world rewards those who can keep their heads while everyone else is losing theirs. That's not just a, quote, it's a survival strategy. One of the greatest financial skills you can ever learn doesn't involve math, markets, or timing. It's the ability to say no. I've probably made more money and avoided more disaster by saying no than by saying yes. Most people think opportunity is about addition, but real success often comes from subtraction. Knowing what not to do, what not to buy, and what not to chase, that's how ordinary people quietly become free. The world will constantly try to sell you something. Every ad, every friend with a can't-miss idea, every bit of financial noise, all of it is designed to push you toward action. But inaction is often your greatest strength. People lose money not because they miss opportunities, but because they take the wrong ones. They mistake activity for intelligence. I've seen it happen my whole life. When I was younger, I learned that every yes comes with a cost. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to a dozen others, including time, focus, and opportunity. That's called opportunity cost, and it applies to everything. Wealth is built not just by choosing what to pursue, but by ruthlessly eliminating distractions. At Berkshire Hathaway, Warren and I say no far more often than we say yes. We've been pitched thousands of deals, and we reject nearly all of them. Not because we're cynical, but because we know our circle of competence. If we don't understand something completely, we don't touch it. and that simple habit has saved us from ruin more times than I can count. The same principle applies to your personal life and finances. You don't have to chase every trend, buy every upgrade, or jump into every new investment. The discipline to wait for the right moment is a skill that compounds just like money does. I've always said, the wise man looks for what he can't afford to lose. Most people do the opposite. They chase what they can't afford to miss. They see others getting rich fast and jump in without thinking. But freedom isn't built on reaction, it's built on restraint. The ability to say no gives you control. It protects your time, your capital, and your sanity. Every no you say to impulse and distraction is a yes to compounding and independence. The middle class tries to grab every opportunity that comes their way. The financially free choose carefully. They understand that not everything needs their attention, their money, or their energy. I've spent my life saying no to most things, and that's exactly why I've had the freedom to say yes to the right ones. Remember this, every great fortune, every wise decision, every life of freedom starts with a well-timed no. If there's one truth I've come to understand about wealth, it's that compounding doesn't just apply to money, it applies to everything. The same principles that build financial freedom also build wisdom, health, and happiness. Time rewards consistency in every area of life. That's why average people can achieve extraordinary results if they simply learn to stay steady where others quit. I often tell people that compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. But it's not just about interest rates and investments, it's about habits. The small things you do repeatedly, the books you read, the people you spend time with, the choices you make when no one's watching, they all accumulate over time. Each decision is like a deposit in an invisible account that pays you later in ways you can't yet see. When I was young, I didn't just study business. I studied human nature, psychology, and history. I read every day, not because I was chasing knowledge, but because I knew that wisdom compounds too. Every idea builds on another. Every mistake teaches you something permanent. And over decades, the gap between the learner and the idle man becomes enormous. That's how the world works. Small advantages repeated over long periods of time turn into massive differences in outcome. People underestimate how powerful slow improvement really is. Everyone wants to get rich fast, get fit fast, get smart fast. They want instant results, and when they don't see them, they give up. But compounding punishes the impatient and rewards the disciplined. You don't have to move fast, you just have to keep moving. The same goes for relationships. Who you associate with compounds too. If you surround yourself with rational, honest, hardworking people, their influence elevates you. But if you spend time with fools, you'll eventually pay their tuition. That's a form of compounding. Most people ignore social compounding. You either rise with your circle or sink with it. Even your character compounds. Every time you choose integrity over convenience, discipline over ease, and patience over impulse, you're building a foundation that can't be shaken. Over time, those small choices form a reputation, a confidence, a peace of mind, all of which are worth far more than money. So yes, compounding will make you rich, but not just financially. It will make you wise, respected, and free. Freedom isn't just about money in the bank. It's about having the habits, the discipline, and the clarity to live on your own terms. I've spent my entire life watching people chase shortcuts. But the truth is, the slow, consistent path is the only shortcut that exists. Compounding works in wealth, in learning, in relationships, and in life. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to keep doing the ordinary things for an extraordinarily long time. After all these years, I've realized that financial freedom isn't a mystery, it's a discipline. It doesn't belong to the brilliant or the lucky. It belongs to the ordinary people who do simple things consistently and avoid foolish mistakes for long enough. The formula is old, boring, and it works every single time. Live below your means, save early, invest patiently, and stay rational. That's it. Everything else is noise. People spend their lives chasing new tricks and complex strategies, but the truth is, most of success comes from doing the basics well and not quitting when it gets dull. The world rewards endurance. Compounding rewards time, and life rewards patience. But most people are too impatient to let those rewards show up. When I look back, I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just refused to do stupid things. I avoided debt. I didn't waste money on appearances. I kept learning year after year. And eventually, the results took care of themselves. It wasn't magic, it was math. And it worked because I gave it time. The average person can become financially free by mastering ordinary behavior, not by chasing extraordinary opportunities. Every paycheck is a choice. Consume it now or let it grow into freedom later. Every decision to wait, to save, to say no moves you closer to independence. You don't need millions to live freely. You just need control over your time, your desires, and your habits. I've seen people with modest incomes achieve real independence. They didn't envy others. They didn't follow trends. And they didn't interrupt compounding. They just stayed steady. That's the entire secret, staying steady when everyone else loses focus. So if you want to be financially free, don't look for excitement. Look for discipline. Don't try to outsmart the system. Outsmart yourself, your impatience, your greed, your ego. Because once you master those, the rest takes care of itself. Financial freedom isn't about escaping work or buying luxury. It's about reaching the point where money no longer dictates your decisions. It's quiet, calm, and deeply satisfying. And anyone, truly anyone, can reach it if they just play the long game. Remember, you don't need to be extraordinary to do extraordinary things. You just have to stay rational, consistent, and patient long enough for compounding to reward you. That's how ordinary people become free. And that's a truth that will never change.